Hello, welcome 410 students. I guess this is our new reality, and so what we're going to do is make the best out of it. So my plan here is to go through these lecture notes, and I'll work out examples here on the screen, and then it'll be up to you. It'll be up to you to go do your homework after this. So let's start out here. We're going to cover for this particular day, we're going to cover three sections: 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3. First section here is U.S. customary units of measurement. So the important thing to understand is that when it comes to measuring things, we have two systems of measurement. We have the U.S. customary units, which comes from the Old English units, and then we have the metric system. So we're going to start out here with 8.1, doing the US system, and then 8.2 we'll do the metric system, and then in 8.3 we'll be converting back and forth between the two. So let's just talk first of all about the standard measurements of length. These are things that we're all familiar with: inches, feet, yards, miles. And here are what we call the conversion factors. So I want to point out here that when you look at a conversion factor, it gives you a way of switching from one unit to the next. So that equation there says that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. So the way I want you to look at this is this conversion factor can be written in two different ways. Okay. First way is you could divide both sides by 1 foot. Let me actually show that. If I divide this side by 1 foot, and divide this side by 1 foot. Then on the left side you get 12 inches over 1 foot equals, and then on this side these cancel out and you just get 1. So this is important. What we're saying to ourselves is that the number 1 can be rewritten as 12 inches over 1 foot. And I know that seems weird initially, but trust me, it'll help us a lot later. Okay, so we have that. Now we could have also started the problem here. Instead of dividing both sides by 1 foot, we could divide both sides by 12 inches. If I do that, then the left side cancels out and I get 1, so I'm just going to put that 1 right here again. But the right hand side becomes 1 foot over 12 inches. Okay, so what am I saying? What I'm saying is that when you're given a conversion factor, okay, like this one, then there's two ways you can write it. You can write this as 12 inches over 1 foot, or you can write that as 1 foot over 12 inches. And like I said, we're going to see how this plays in, or is going to factor in a little bit later. Let me show you one more example. This next one, 3 feet is 1 yard. That means I can write that as 3 feet over 1 yard, or I can write that as 1 yard over 3 feet. Either way, I get to choose. And that would work the same for all of these. All right? So we'll be referring to this table a little bit later as we work through the problems. Just remember this. All right, now measurements of volume. So this is how much something can hold. This was all measurements of length. If you're going to measure it with a ruler, okay, this is measurements of length. So we talk about inches, feet, yards, and miles when we talk about length. We talk about volume, we talk about teaspoons, tablespoons, fluid ounces, cups, pints, quarts, and gallons. So here are all the conversion factors that we use for volume measurements. And then we have measurements of mass or weight, and this is when we talk about ounces, pounds, and tons. So 16 ounces is a pound, 2,000 pounds is a ton. Then we have measurements of time. Now, the accepted we all accept the same measurement of time. That's the good thing. When it comes to mass, volume, and length, those measurements, we have a US system and we have a metric system, but when it comes to time, we all agree on the same thing, which is nice. Seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years. So we should know all these pretty much, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, 12 months in a year, 365 days in a year. So now what we are going to finally do with all this information is what's called dimensional analysis. which is a problem-solving method that allows us to convert from one unit of measurement to another. All right. So this right here is just talking a little bit more about what I was talking about earlier, about how you can create, if you have like 12 inches equals 1 foot, then there's two different ways you can write that. All right, so let's do a practice problem here. Create the unit factor that relates feet to miles. Okay, so let's go back up and let's look at where we had feet and miles. Feet and miles is a measurement of distance, or a length. So we're gonna go back here, feet and miles. Let me see, here we go, here it is. So 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So I'm gonna go back down to this example. Okay, we know that 5,280 feet are equal to 1 mile. So the two different unit factors we could create are 5,280 feet over 1 mile, or we could do 1 mile over 5,280 feet. Okay. How about, so that would be how we would create the unit factors, or the conversion factor. Use the conversion factor to create the two equivalent statements. Let's do the same thing for quarts and gallons. So that's a measurement of volume. So go up, let's see here, quarts, gallons, okay. So here we go, 4 quarts is 1 gallon. So I'll write that down. 4 quarts is 1 gallon. I'll just put G. So we could write 4 quarts over 1 gallon, or we could write 1 gallon over 4 quarts. Either way. Okay, so finally, how do we go about converting? So this example works through the whole thing. I'm not going to work through it. I'm just going to do an example. So let me do this example. We want to find 3 miles. We want to convert 3 miles over to how many inches? So how many inches are there in 3 miles? So here's the way we'll do it. I'm going to just work it right here. We want to go from 3 miles over to inches. All right, so here's what we need to write down first. We write down 3 miles, and we'll always do this every single time. 3 miles over 1, and we'll just always put it over 1. And now we need to think about how we can get from miles to inches. So let's go back up to our table where we had measurements of length. And I'm going to erase some of this stuff just to get it out of here. We need to go from 3 miles to inches. Well, if we look at this, we know that the only thing we have on this table that has inches is this right here. There's 12 inches in 1 foot. So we know how to convert from inches to feet. The question is, can we go from feet to miles? And we can. We can actually do it right here. Feet goes to miles. So there is a way to get from miles over to inches if we first go from miles to feet, and then once we get to feet, we go feet to inches. So we actually have to use 2 conversion factors. So let's remember that with this first one, there's 2 different ways we could do it. 12 inches over 1 foot, or we could do 1 foot over 12 inches. Here we could have 2 conversion factors, 5,280 feet over 1 mile, or we could do 1 mile, 1 mile over 5,280 feet. So we need to remember those things, and now I need to scroll back down so I can work through this problem. All right. So where had I put that? There we go. Okay, so here's where we were, right? Oops. Right here. Okay, so if I want to go from miles to inches, the first thing I got to do is go from miles to feet. So what I'm going to do is going to multiply by 1. And we know that multiplying by 1 doesn't change anything. But the one that I'm actually going to use is not going to be this. It's going to be one of those conversion factors. And I want to go from miles to feet. So what I need to do is make this miles right here cancel. So that means I need a miles in the denominator so that these 2 units, when it's time, will cancel one another out and the miles will go away. So I now remember I need to go from miles to feet. So I know that I need to have feet on top. So if we scroll back up and we look at these things we had here, where did we have miles on the bottom and feet on top? It was this one right here, right? So that's the one I need to copy down here. I need to use that conversion factor to say 5,280 feet are in 1 mile. And now what I can do is cancel out the miles. And now I have feet. So if I were to multiply these fractions straight across, I would know how many feet there are in 3 miles. But I'm not done because I want to go to inches. So what I'm going to do now is multiply again by another conversion factor that will make my feet cancel, right? Because I want the top and the bottom to cancel here. And I want inches to appear up here. So the question is, how many inches were there in a foot? And if we scroll back up, we would see we had written down 12 inches in 1 foot. So now I can cancel the feet. And all I have left is to multiply it straight across. These are fractions, so I multiply straight across 3 times this, and then I still have inches. So I'm going to get my calculator out. I'm going to go 3 times, let me get my calculator turned on here. 3 times 5280 times 12. And on the bottom, I multiply across to get 1 times 1 times 1. There's no units down there. So my answer here is 190080 inches over 1. Now, since the bottom is 1, I don't need to actually consider it. So we just get this many inches. And that's 190,080 inches. That's how many inches there are in 3 miles. Okay, so you can see the key to the problem here is to understand that you always want your units to transfer, to convert. So you have to put the units that you want to go away, on the opposite. If you're trying to get miles on top to go away, you're going to have miles on the bottom here. If we wanted feet to go away, we have to feet on the bottom here so that these cancel. And that'll leave you with the unit you're trying to go to. Okay, let's do another one here. Let's try this one. 2 1/3 yard. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this mixed number. Multiply 2 times 3 is 6, add 1, we get 7/3 yards. And we want to convert that into feet. So what do we know about yards and feet? So if we scroll back up, what was our relationship between yards and feet? Well, we knew that, I've got a big mess here. We knew that 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. So that means I can write that 2 different ways. 3 feet over 1 yard, or I can do 1 yard over 3 feet. Which one are we going to use? Well, it depends on what we want to cancel. So we want to go to feet, right? So I'm going to write down 7. Now watch how I do this. 7 yards over 3. So notice I put the yard on top because that's the unit we're starting with. And since it was a fraction to start with, I put the 7 on top and the 3 on the bottom. Now I'm going to multiply that by the conversion factor. Now remember, we want our yards to go away. So we want yards on the bottom. So I'm going to put yards here. And that means feet will have to be up top, right? And we know that there are 3 feet in 1 yard. So I'm using that conversion factor. Now you can see my yards are one's on the top, one's on the bottom, so they'll cancel, right? And now I can multiply straight across. So I go 7 times 3 and then feet, so that's 21 feet over, now 3 times 1 and the yards is gone, so just 3, and 21 over 3 is actually 7, so we get 7 feet. So 2 1/3 yards is actually 7 feet. Okay, let's do this next one. We want to go 2 gallons, right? So we want to go from gallons over to fluid ounces. All right, so let's go look at our table. This is a measurement of volume, so gallons to ounces is what we're looking for. All right, so where do we have gallons to ounces? Well, we don't have gallons to ounces. What we do have is gallons and quarts. So can we get from quarts to ounces? No, the only thing we have with ounces is ounces and cups. So can we get, right now we can go from gallons to quarts. We need to try and see if we can get from quarts to cups. And we can see right here we have quarts and cups. So this is going to be somewhat difficult. We're going to first go from gallons. We're going to convert that to quarts. From quarts we're going to go to cups. And from cups we're going to go to ounces. So it's going to require a couple of conversion factors here. In fact, what I'm going to do here is go back and down and look at this problem. 2 gallons. We want to go 2 gallons to fluid ounces. I'm going to just do the problem right here. I want to go from 2 gallons to ounces. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write 2 gallons, 2 gal over 1. And I want gallons to go away. And I said I'm going to go from gallons to quarts first. So here's the conversion factor I'm going to use. I want gallons on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and put, we know that 1 gallon is 4 quarts. Okay, so good. That means our gallons are going to cancel. But now I want the quarts to cancel, and I want to go from quarts to cups. So that's using this one right here. So I could write times, let's see, I want my quarts to go away, so quarts are on the bottom and cups are on top. I'm just going to put C for cups. And this thing tells us that there's 4, oops, that's going to happen quite a bit. 4 cups in 1 quart. We're almost there. Now we know the quarts are going to cancel. And now I need to get from cups to ounces. So I'm going to use this one right here. So we know that we want cups to cancel and ounces to show up on top. And we know that there are 8 ounces in 1 cup, and then our cups will cancel. So let's see what we've got. On top, we need to multiply 2 times 4 times 4 times 8, and that's how many ounces we'll have. And then on the bottom is 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, so we won't even have to worry about the bottom. So you could just get your calculator out if you need it. 2 times 4 times 4 times 8, and we get 256 ounces. That's how many ounces there are in 2 gallons. All right, it's a little tedious. Once you catch on to it, it's not so bad. So let me see what we've got here. Here's a group work problem. So this group work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just let you have a chance now to pause the video and then try and work it out yourself. And then I'll come back here and show you the answer. So go ahead and pause that video. Work it out. Okay, so hopefully you did this. We wanted to get from pounds to tons. So the relationship we have is that there are 2,000 pounds in 1 ton. So because we start with the 7,000 pounds and the pounds is on top, we're going to put 1 ton over 2,000 pounds. That way the pounds cancel. And then all we do is just multiply straight across. And what we get is 7,000 tons on top, and then on the bottom 2,000. And then we just do 7,000 divided by 2,000 on our calculator, and we get 3.5 tons. Okay, let's see if you can do this one. We want to convert 4 weeks to hours. See what you do. Okay, so hopefully you got 672 hours. So we start out with 4 weeks over 1, and we want weeks to cancel, so we know that there's 7 days in 1 week. And so we go ahead and cancel the weeks, but then we want the days to cancel and go to hours, so we know that 1 day is 24 hours. Cancel the days, and then just multiply straight across. Okay, let's try this group work problem here. Tatiana went to purchase bottled water. She found the following options: 12-pack of 1-pint bottles, a 1-gallon jug, and a 6-pack of 24-ounce fluid ounce bottles. Which option should Tatiana choose to get the most water. So we're trying to see like which of these is the most. So let's take a look at this first one. We have 12 pack of 1 pint bottles. So that means she has 12 1 pint bottles, which means she would have 12 pints. That's the first option. Versus the second option, which would be 1 gallon. Okay, so we're going to compare that to 1 gallon versus, let's see what her final option is, 6 pack of 24 ounce bottles. So if we multiply 6 times 24, we get 144 ounces. Okay, so we need to see which of these is more, 12 pints, 1 gallon, or 144 ounces. So one thing we can do is try and convert all of these to the same unit to see which is more. So how about we try and get all of these to gallons, all right? So let's try first of all to convert 12 pints into gallons. So we'll do 12 pints over 1 times, and then we go up, we're trying to get from pints to gallons, so we go up to our conversions. What a mess. So the only way to get from pints to gallons is to go from, let's see, pints to quarts, and then quarts to gallons. So there are 2 pints in 1 quart, and there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon. So here's what we would do. Oh, I went too far. So we know that there are, we want the pints to go away and the quarts to show up, and then we want the quarts to go away and the gallons to show up. So we're just focusing on this right now. And there are 2 quarts in a pint, is that right? I'm having a brain fart here. Wait, 2 pints in a quart, yeah. There are 2 pints in a quart. So there are 2 pints in 1 quart, and there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon. And so you can see our pints go away, our quarts go away. And so what we wind up getting here is straight across multiplying. We get 12 gallons over, and then 1 times 2 times 4, that's 8. So 12 divided by 8 is 1.5 gallons. So we already know that doing 12 pints is better than 1 gallon. So that's definitely not the most. Now we need to convert this to gallons. So let's try and get 144 ounces to gallons. So we go back up and we see if we have any way to get from ounces to gallons. Well, this is going to be quite a bit of work because we've got to go ounces to cups, and then let's see, we could go cups to quarts and quarts to gallons. Let me just do this all up here instead of doing it down here on the bottom. It'll be easier. I just don't remember what it was. It was 144 ounces. Okay, I'm sorry about the scrolling back and forth. So we want to go 144 ounces over 1, and now let's try and convert this. So we know we can get from ounces to cups, so we know we want ounces on the bottom, cups on the top. There's 8 ounces in 1 cup. And then we can use this one to get to quarts, so we want cups on the bottom, quarts on the top. So we know there are 4 cups in 1 quart. And then finally we're going to get from quarts to gallons using this one, quarts on the bottom, gallons on the top. There are 4 quarts in 1 gallon. And now we get all these units to cancel. Ounces go away, cups go away, quarts go away. So we should just get gallons. So on the top we have 144 gallons over. Now 8 times 4 times 4 is 128. And now we do that on our calculator. 144 divided by 128. And we get 1.125 gallons. Okay, so going back down here, 1.125 gallons. So we know if we did 12 pints gives us 1.5. This 1 gallon is less than that. And we just found that 144 ounces was 1.125 gallons, which is smaller than 1.5. So the way that she could get the most is to do this 12 pack of 1 pint bottles. The 12 pints is the largest amount that she could get. All right, hope that makes sense. Okay, now let's talk about converting areas. So recall that the area of a rectangle, so if you have a rectangle, the area, which is the amount of space in here, is always going to be your length times your width. And it doesn't matter which side I call L and which side I call W. But if I multiply those two together, L times W, that gives me the area inside. So if you look at this figure right here, if you measure this length from here to here is 1 yard, and you measure this length from here to here is 1 yard, then the area of that would be 1 yard times 1 yard. That's doing this right here, 1 yard times 1 yard. So we know 1 times 1 is 1. But when you do yard times yard, you get what we call the squared unit. So you say squared yards. And that's a way of knowing the difference between an area and a length. If you write 1 yard, you're talking about the distance of something, how long something is. If you write 1 yard with a little squared on it, then you're talking about the area of a box. So those are two very different measurements, and so we must always pay attention to the square on the unit. Now, looking at this box, which is the same one, if I measure from here to here, that is 3 feet. Now we know 3 feet is the same as 1 yard, okay? And this over here, this yard, if we convert it to feet, is 3 feet. So what would be the area of this box in terms of feet? Well, it would be the 3 times 3, right? 3 times the 3 would give you 9. But then instead of yard times yard, it's feet times feet, and that gives you feet squared here. So what we can say is that 1 squared yard is equal to 9 square feet. So 1 squared yard is equal to 9 squared feet. So let's see how we could do that same example. I'm going to do the same example without any pictures. Okay, and then we'll do these examples here. Okay, so what if I wanted you to convert 1 square yard into square feet? And we know the answer is 9, but how would we do that? Well, this is the tricky part. You're going to write down 1 yard times yard. Now, I know that seems weird, but remember, this yard squared means yard times yard. So just like we did before when we were doing gallons and pints and cups and all that, you always start with whatever you're starting with, you write it over 1. Here we do the same thing. We write 1, but because of the yard squared, we write yard, yard. Now, we want to get to feet squared. So we want the yards to go away and the feet to show up. And we already know that there are 3 feet in 1 yard. So remember, I can use a conversion factor either way. Here I'm going to use a conversion factor with feet on top and yards on the bottom. That way I can put 1 yard here and 3 feet here. Now if I do this, I'm going to get this yard to cancel with one of those, but I still have another yard that needs to cancel, which means I have to put another conversion factor in here, 3 feet over 1 yard, a second one, so that this and this cancel. And now you can see that if you multiply across the top, 1 times 3 times feet times, times 3. 1 times 3 times 3, then feet times feet. On the top, you're going to get 9 feet squared, and on the bottom, you get 1, and that's just 9 feet squared, which is what we said the answer should be. So we have to be extremely careful when we're doing dimensional analysis with areas. All right, here's an example. Let's say we're trying to go 720 square inches. So I'm going to go inches times inches over 1. I want to convert that to feet squared. So I need to know that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. That's my conversion factor. Now I want my inches to go away, so I'm going to put 12 inches on the bottom, 1 foot on top. I have to do that again because I have 2 of the units to cancel, so I have to do 1 foot over 12 inches again. And this inch and inch will go away, this inch and that inch will go away. So you get here on top 720 square feet over, now be careful here, this is going to be 1 times 12 times 12, that's 144. So now we have 720 divided by 144, which gives you 5. So 5 square feet. So 720 square inches is equal to 5 square feet. Now why don't you try and do this one on your own? We're trying to go from square yards to square feet. I'll go ahead and pause the video and let you come back and unpause it to get the answer. Okay, let's see, did you get 90 square feet? If so, that's good. We had to write the 10 square yards as 10 yards over 1. We need the yards to cancel out twice, and we're trying to get to feet. So we know that there are 3 feet in a yard, so we use that conversion factor twice. And then we just multiply across the top. 10 times 3 times 3 is 90, and then feet times feet is feet squared, and on the bottom we get a 1. So 90 square feet. Okay, that is it for 8.1. Let's move on to 8.2.